This is about. They actually do it by 2-ounce increments because it varies depending on the part of the body that they cut it from. So this is about 8-10, they call it. So it's between 8 and 10 ounces. This is the same thickness, but this is called oak tan leather or vegetable tan leather.
Oh.
So the difference is this is more stiff, and this is more supple, but this is also more expensive.
Oh.
So that's the difference. But this is great for belts and for, I use it for most of my straps and things because it's very resilient. So this is a lot thinner. This is about a 5-ounce leather.
Okay.
This is more like a garment weight leather, a heavy garment weight, or this could also be for like upholstery weight. So this is, if you go to Tandy, they'll say that this is a upholstery weight leather.
Oh.
Use it for car seats or for refinishing chairs and stuff.
So should I go for this one since more stiffness?
Well, if you're the armor, is this going to be protective armor or is it going to be costume or
we're going for the wheel protected.
Okay.
Version.
What are you planning on? Are you planning on using it with like rattan or with what kind of weapons are you looking to get hit with?
Maybe rattan.
Okay.
I'm not going into weapons yet.
Okay. Oh, the reason why I'm asking is because you want to make sure that the armor is resilient enough to handle the force of the impact. That you're
Yes.
So that's my only concern there.
Okay.
So this is going to be thicker. If you're looking for, this is a vambrace that I made, just playing around. But this vambrace is made out of this thickness of leather, and you can see how rigid it is and how it feels. But it's just it was just a prototype I put together for fun. The way I connected it all was just with straps and buckles.
Yes.
And then with rivets to hold these plates together. And these plates, what they do is they just extend out the coverage of the vambrace. So I'll show you how it fits on here in a second. And it's designed for my size, but it's kind of adjustable based on the straps. So, and it's still pretty stiff. I've not used it too much. So you can see that this part kind of goes back. This would go. Let's see, get my arm. This would go back to kind of cover the point of the elbow.
Yes.
So right there, and then this would be like to the right here on this wrist part.
Gauntlet.
Yeah, and your gauntlet would cover over the top of that. You could also twist it if you wanted to do it this way. The reason why I turn it this way is you actually get a lot more shots coming in from the side than you do from the top.
Sure.
Especially when if you're holding your weapon out, this is going to be more protective than if it was on top. Because you're not going to with your weapons up, you're not going to get any shots coming in directly on top. It's going to be coming from the side. And then this extending out towards the elbow, you take a lot of glancing shots back this way. So I would add to this an elbow cop or elbow piece, and that would be a good start of something. The one trick is I would recommend like a padded garment or padded clothing underneath to help absorb the impact, and that's so like those are all padded gambesons, padded jackets, padded gambesons. You can even just use karate D's, something like that, or you can wear something that's like a heavy sweater even to start with, and then get into something that's more. Don't worry about the historically accurate stuff yet. Just worry about something that's functional at first.
Right.
So I would recommend a heavy sweater possibly.
So like audience about cutting it and also the rivets that seems the most challenging.
Okay.
At the moment.
It's actually very simple, and I'll show you. I can talk about step by step about how each of these is done.
Do we need an anvil for it?
You need an anvil, but an anvil doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be huge like that. I actually use this one more, and this is just a piece of metal. This is actually a window weight from a Victorian house. So this would be inside the wall of the window to make the window opening and closing easier. So it's just repurposed, piece of scrap. But a lot of people use railroad rail. See this? You can get lengths of railroad rail all over the place for cheap or for free, and that's a good anvil. Those are really hard, so they're hard metal that you can use. You can also buy like these little tiny anvils, and these are good enough. Go ahead and hold it. These are good enough to start with for rivets, because you're not going to be. You need the bigger anvils when you're working over steel, when you're working big pieces. But for starting, something like this is actually not bad.
Do they sell anvils like this at Tandy?
Yeah, and they call them jeweler's anvils or riveting anvils.
Okay.
You can get different sizes too. You can get a little bit larger. I have one out here. See this one here? That's a very economical anvil. You can get that from Harbor Freight, and it's like $50. But that's a little bit larger. You don't even need something that fancy. I mean, you can start with really a chunk of hard metal, as long as it's flat and smooth, and use that to set the rivets. So let's talk about first the shaping and cutting of the leather.
Yeah.
I use, I think I talked about this last time. I use paper bags for my patterns. So I will shape it over the piece of the body that I want, and then I'll cut the paper, and then I'll layer it with additional pieces of paper, and so you get the shape and the form of what you're looking for. You can use also like poster board or something else.
I use cardboard.
Yeah, you can use cardboard too. This is, especially if you're dealing with leather, this is actually not too bad because it's fairly flexible, and even though it's just paper, it's fairly resilient, and it's also free. You can go to the grocery store and get a bag. Instead of getting a plastic, you get a paper bag, and there you go. So I'm looking at price also. So that's also important. Excuse me. Trying to see if I have some of my patterns here. So the patterns, you lay them out over the leather, and then you can just use a marker or a piece of chalk, and you can just draw in the detail of it. The trick is also you want to give yourself a little extra sometimes. So from the pattern, if this is the pattern piece, and this is the leather, you want to make sure that you're not taking the pen and going in at an angle. You're going either straight down or just a little bit out.
Okay.
And the reason why is if you go in, you actually will change the dimensions and the size of it. One good way to do it is if you can clamp it down, and there's different clamps. These are not necessary. This is just what I use. So these are just little clamps you can get from Home Depot, and you can just clamp it to the leather so that you can so it doesn't move on you while you're measuring and cutting. So. And then you can also lay it out on a flat surface. You know, a nice solid table. You can even use the garage floor or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything special. Just a nice flat surface where you can do your patterning. Okay? The problem, again, this is just like with any kind of material cutting, whether it would be wood or metal or leather, you have to make sure that you measure twice or 3 times and cut once, right? Because you're not gonna have the opportunity to put things back on. There are creative ways you can do that, but for the most part, it's not easy. So it's something that can be a little difficult. So over measure, over check. There's no problem with that.
And then after cutting out.
Yep. Let me show you. Actually, I need to go over here.
Okay.
So for cutting, good pair of shears. These are probably like 25 years old, maybe 30 years old. They're from Tandy Leather. They have different kinds of shears that they sell. These are the more expensive ones, but they last forever, and they're still razor sharp. I've taken them down twice, I think, in 25 years to get sharpened, and they work really well. And they cut through anything leather-wise. So this is a time-saving device. You can use cheaper scissors, and you can use a knife or something instead. Knives are difficult because you can more easily cut yourself than scissors. And these scissors are, if you were going to invest in anything, I would say get a good pair of good scissors.
What's the brand name is that?
This is from Tandy Leather.
Tandy Leather.
Yep. So we actually have it. It might be kind of hard to see, but it's
Yeah,
right on there.
Tandy.
Yep.
Tandy.
So it's
Wow.
these are Tandy brand, and these are the premium shears. I think they're about $50.
Okay.
So again, they're an investment, but again, they will last. They last forever, and they're quite worth it. The other thing is, okay, so we got the cutting.
Yeah.
So there's other tools you can use for cutting, as I mentioned. One of the other tools is for cutting straps.
Yes, I've seen that before. I didn't know how it would work.
Sure, I can show you. So it's called the strap cutter, and they sell it at Tandy Leather. They sell it online also, or you can probably get it from Amazon also. What it has is it has a razor blade in here, and then it has a solid, the wood part here kind of stops the leather, and you put the leather through underneath the razor blade, and you pull through, giving you a nice straight edge, a clean edge on both sides. And I'll demonstrate it. I'll cut a strap here for you. So it's okay. So let me clean this up a little bit.
So does it measure by the width because of the measurements on the cutting?
You measure it ahead of time. So there is a ruler
Yeah.
on top, so you can adjust it here, and you can slide it to be how big of a strap you want. So 1 inch, 2 inch, etc. Usually for most straps, you're going to deal with a 1 inch
1 inch.
or a ½ inch. They're usually not very much larger than that. So for this demonstration, we'll use a ½ inch
Okay.
because that's a pretty standard size for straps. And the strap size also is determined by the buckle size. So depending on the size of the buckle you're going to use, you're going to have your strap that's going to align with it, right?
Okay.
So you can't make your strap too big, and it won't fit. Otherwise, it won't fit into the buckle. Like these are actually like they are like a they're just under a ½ inch. So they're actually less than a ½ inch. Okay, but for this purpose we'll do a ½ inch.
Daddy,
Yes.
her bike,
Yeah.
her seat
Look at
is
my seat.
tilted
Yeah.
up.
We'll have to fix that.
Can you fix it?
Yeah, in just a moment. So if you look at the razor blade, you can see the bottom part. See how it's a little shinier than the rest?
Yeah.
That's the sharp end. So you know that that's where you always start your cut.
Watch me.
You just put it between the two pieces of wood, kind of push it up a little bit.
Then you just pull.
Yeah, the hardest part is just getting it started.
Oh.
Let me see if I can look at this. Sometimes this leather is quite thick, so it takes a little more width. Okay. It's also kind of soft, so it's kind of squishy. If it's stiffer leather, it's easier to pull through and cut. You know what? I'm going to use a different leather for demonstration. There we go. Alright, so we'll just use this leather. It's a little thinner. So you get it going through. Actually, I'm going to make it narrower now. Not too narrow. Once you get it going, it's really fast. So.
I wanted to watch you go down. Let's go down. Car. Which way? Hill? On the hill. No. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to cheat. I'm actually going to see where it made a little mark. See that little nick?
Yeah.
I'm going to make a little cut right where that nick is.
Then cut through.
Yeah, and then it'll help get it started. Probably need a new blade on this. That's what the problem is. The blades last for a long time. So.
Are they replaceable?
Yep, it's just see the little edge of it is sticking out right there.
Oh.
So you just undo those screws, and that opens up, and then the razor blade just slips right in there.
Oh.
That you can buy them from Tandy, also the replacement blades. Okay, so you can see the little bit of the leather is sticking out the top. So now we use tools. So just a pair of needle nose pliers. You can use any kind of pliers you want. Having a good set of pliers around always is recommended.
True.
Okay. All right, there we go. So now that we got it started, you should be able to just.
Sidewalk. Sidewalk.
There we go. So now if we make sure that the leather is flush with the wood so that it stays straight.
Oh wow.
Okay, now this leather isn't straight on all sides, so it's going to have a little curve in it because the starting edge was a little curved. But if you see here, it's got a little bit of a curve right there.
Oh wow.
That's because the edge of the leather had a little curve in it. But it cuts it straight based on the original line of the leather that you start with. So if you start with a nice 90-degree line, you can make a nice strap out of it. And that's a good strap. You can use that for something that's probably not quite armor grade, but for decorative stuff and for clothing, absolutely.
But do for the straps, do they have to be armor grade as well to go on armor as well?
It depends. So so again, it goes back to the kind of fighting that you're going to do or the kind of movement. The best thing about armor, the best armor is armor that you don't know that you're wearing. That it fits comfortably. If it's like a glove, you can move and there's no restriction. If there's restriction points where you're like pulling against the armor, those straps and connection points that are at those pivot points are going to wear. And when I mean wear, it's going to stretch the leather eventually, like this leather. It's good for kind of clothing grade, because if you put a lot of pressure on it, it will stretch. So if you have like 20 pounds of armor hanging from it, it's going to stretch over time. And then if you think about it, some of the armor I have is 20 years old, 25 years old. I've not replaced all the straps, and I've replaced some of the straps, but because it's nice, heavy, thick leather, it doesn't stretch that much. If it was lighter leather, it would stretch, and then you'd have to replace it more often. So it's kind of you can get by with something like this, but if you do heavier, then it will last longer, and it'll treat you better over time. So it all depends on what your goal is with it.
I fixed it.
So again, also it depends on the kind of fighting you're going to do, how intense, how hardcore it's going to be. The Battle of Nations stuff that we're starting to do now requires a lot of grappling and going to the ground and stuff, so that it takes a lot more impact on the armor. Whereas the stuff we did before, which was a lot more standing up fighting with the swords, it was a lot less impact.
Is Battle of Nations with the SCA?
No, it's a separate group. There's a lot of guys from the SCA that are in it, but it's not related. It's a separate thing. It's actually a group out of Russia that's in charge of it. So yeah, this is our second year. So, yep. So that's a good strap. That's a good start on that. Let's go ahead and take that to the next level. Let's go ahead and get that strap, and I'm going to show you how to do a rivet now. Okay. So first thing is, let's imagine we're going to put a buckle on there. Okay. So if you look at the buckles that I have here, we're going to look at this as an example. Okay. So we're going to cut a hole for the tab for the buckle, and then we're going to put a rivet in there to hold it in place. This rivet is actually just to secure it. So if you notice, there's only one rivet going through to the leather, and then the other one, actually this one is only one rivet. These two have two rivets, but on this one, it's only one rivet holding it down. The other rivet is just to hold it closed to keep the buckle from moving. Okay. So we're going to cut that hole first. We have a little tool to do that. You can do this different ways. I guess the easier way is with a tool like this. This is specifically for cutting belt holes, or buckle holes. But you could also do it with just a hole punch.
Really?
Yeah, which I'll show you in a second. You want to make sure that this is cleared out as much as possible, otherwise it gets in the way. Okay, that's good enough.
And that one is the what's that? What's the name of that one?
Of this?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know if it has a specific name. It's a buckle cutter, buckle set.
Okay.
I don't know if it's any more of a technical name than that though. So all it is just a rectangular hole instead of with a hole punch. You just have a round hole, right?
Oh.
So this is with a round hole. We could do a couple different things. So we'll just, for example, I'll just make a hole here. You can adjust the size, of course, and then you want to put it usually right in the middle of the belt. Click it down until it clicks, and then twist it also. That way it cuts off the metal of the leather. Okay? That's good for rivets. If you're looking to do something like a hole for a buckle with this, you can just continue the circles and just do them next to each other. Do one on either side, for example. Good job! Watch the road! So that's almost big enough, right? Let's just do one more. And then I have a buckle we can test it with.
And are the buckles, like, do you prefer for armor grade? Is it for brass or copper?
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't go anything smaller than a 1/4 inch buckle, but for buckle wise, it's really more aesthetics. So if you like copper look or the silver or the nickel look, it's up to you.
Okay.
I have all kinds that I use, and it really just depends on. I try to make it consistent across projects. So if I'm doing copper, I'll stay with, or if it's a nickel color, I'll stay with nickel color. So this is just an example. Obviously, this is way too far up in the leather to be functional, but we'd have to trim it a lot if we did this. But this would just go through here, and then you would secure it. Yep, with a rivet. And as you can see, the strap is just a little bit too wide, so it's bending up on the side. So if we were actually going to use this buckle, we'd have to cut the leather down just a hair more, so it wouldn't have that bend.
So if I get a buckle that's a 1/2 inch, I would the leather strap would be a 1/2 inch or lower.
Just a hair under a
hair
1/2
under,
inch.
okay.
And the good way to measure that is, so just measure the distance from here to here, and that's how big the strap has to be. And if you look, the that is actually probably, yeah, if that's, okay, well let me measure it and see. That is about, actually I was wrong, this is about 3/4 of an inch.
Oh.
Okay, so the strap I cut must be, you know, a little bit larger than that. So this is, if it was a 1/2 inch, it'd be about better.
Oh.
So it's about 3/4 inch
Okay.
buckle. And I would just measure on the inside of the buckle, and because sometimes the number that they have actually on the packages is off by a couple of centimeters, a couple of millimeters. So just take it and put it over that and say, okay, you see that dark line there on the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll move the strap cutter right to that line, and then you know that's where your strap gets cut, and then they'll be the right width. So we can actually trim it, I think, if we can behave. Let's see here.
Ben.
Go. And of course, this is being difficult. There we go. Because it's soft. Yeah. It's not really trimming it. It's just going under the blade. So you probably have to do that when you're doing the initial cuts. So, but as I showed, this is one way you can just use a hole punch to get the same effect as the tool. Now, if we use the tool, I'll show you what it looks like. It's not that much different. You need a hammer of some sort.
But what type of hammers are there to use? Like they said that some hammers apply, like the regular hammers don't work with armor.
You know what? Don't believe everything you read on that. But I would say so. It depends on what you're working with. When you get to working with metal, it's a lot more important. This is an armor hammer. This is a ball peen hammer. But the trick is that on a standard ball peen hammer that you get from the store, it's going to have a raised ridge right around the outside here. It's going to be kind of sharp. So you take it and you have to grind it down. And I can help you with that. I have grinders to do that with a bench grinder. So that just takes 5 minutes or whatever, and it gets it to be a rounded surface. Okay? The cleaner and smoother your face of your hammer is and your anvil, the cleaner and smoother the end product will be. So if you have a rough hammer, you're going to have a rough piece when you're done. And you have a rough anvil, rough piece when you're done. So if you have a nice smooth hammer, then you're going to have a nice smooth piece when you're all done. Because every nick and scratch and everything else, when you hit it into the metal, transfers. When you're dealing with leather, it's not as necessary to worry about the faces so much. All you're doing is you're applying force to the rivet, you're applying force to the punch or whatever you're doing. This is, a lot of people with leatherworking use either a rawhide hammer like this.
Or rubber.
Yeah, or a rubber hammer. And I have one back there, it's tucked away, but they have like big orange rubber hammers, or they have rawhide hammers. This actually has lead wrapped inside of it and sealed, but it's rawhide. Good job! Stay on there you go. So the good thing about the rawhide is that it won't mushroom the head of the set. So the steel hammers, they're harder than the set, and eventually it'll flare out and mushroom, and you'll have to grind that off. So if you're using a softer hammer, like a rawhide or a rubber, you won't have that problem as much. Okay, that's the only reason to use one of those. It saves your tools, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. All right. I use this as a little piece of tooling leather, so it's just a piece of the oak tanned or the vegetable tanned leather, and I use that to put underneath the punch so that it doesn't cut into the metal of the anvil. So I'll show you. So you lay that down first. You put your strap down wherever you want to make the hole.
Okay.
Let's say we're going to make it right here. You keep doing it until you feel that it goes through all the way. And then you can come and see. Nice clean hole, right? And obviously it's just a hair off being true, a true 90-degree cut there. but that's just how I was holding it. So you can just, with a little more precision, get that down. But if you look at the two holes, they're not really that different, right? The only difference is this tool costs, probably $10 or whatever. Whereas if you just buy a hole punch, which you'll need anyways, you can do the same effect for now. So this is a shortcut for you for now. And then later on, you can get the cool tools, the fancy tools. All right? But either one of these will work for buckle, okay? So if we're going to install a buckle, get that buckle back. Let's see where I put it. Here's a buckle. All right. So we're going to install the buckle for continue the demonstration here. See how the tongue of the buckle is pointing kind of down?
Yes.
You know that this is the top of the buckle, and this is the top of the leather. So you want to make sure that those are lined up. The way it is right now, I actually need to turn it around because you want to have the top of the leather over the top of the buckle.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'll end up with the fuzzy side up, which is not the goal here. When you pull it down tight, you want to make sure that this hole is evenly stretched between the front and the back. If you pull it too far to one side, then your tongue won't be able to move properly. If you pull it too far to the other side, then it won't stay up. It won't stay down. So you try to pull it like right in the middle, give or take. Okay. You line it up even. Okay. And then we just do a hole with the hole punch. Find the size you want that's going to match the rivet that you're using, approximately. It can be a little bit smaller because the leather will stretch, so it doesn't have to be exact.
Was it good to get large rivets or small rivets?
As far as length or width?
I don't know, like what.
Okay, I'll go into that with you in just a second here. But yeah, I have a recommendation on that for sure. So you want to go probably about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom of the tongue.
Okay.
You don't want to get too close because then it'll make it weak right here and it'll rip. And if you go too far, it won't hold the buckle steady. The buckle will move down and recess. So right here, we know we're kind of lined up pretty well in the middle, right? Punch it through. You want to hear kind of 2 clicks because you're going through 2 pieces of leather.
Okay.
And then you twist it a little bit to try to get the leather to cut itself. Make sure that both holes are clean. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead and hold that. And now we're going to put a rivet in. So there's different kinds of material for rivets. I use, here's a couple. Put your hand out. So here's some copper. Some people use, these are brass rivets. These are called quick rivets or quick snap rivets. These are stainless steel rivets. And then we have mild steel rivets. Okay. These are also, if you look, they're all different sizes as far as different lengths of the stem here. So we have the ones that are quite long and the ones that are tiny, right? Really short. So they each have their own purposes. And you can buy these from the different supply shops or from Tandy Leather. I use a lot of copper. Copper is easy to peen. It means that when you bend it over, it goes easily.
And you said it lasts.
Yeah, and it lasts well. I mean, most of my armor here is done with copper rivets, and it's mostly, 25 years old. And between the combination of the copper, because it's soft, it flexes and it gives a little bit, whereas the other stuff will eventually just break and snap with a catastrophic failure. So you don't want that. These quick snap rivets are pretty and they're easy to do, but they don't hold up as long or as well.
So mostly for casting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or for places where you're going to have a lot of these, and maybe you're going to have like 10 or 15 of them, and then you'll have, maybe a couple heavy duty ones that are on the corners to hold things in place. And the rest are mostly like kind of decoration.
Do rivets work for if someone's trying to make a studded?
It can. It can. It depends. So if you look at the copper rivet, this one, see how it's rounded on the dome? That is a good example of what you can do with a washer. Put that on together, and you would end up with a kind of a studded looking. And when you hit it in, it'll recess into the washer, so it'll squish into the washer, and then you'll have a studded looking copper rivet. And you can do that with any of the materials. This is a stainless, same kind of effect. It has the rounded dome. But you can also get it with a flat, like that. So it depends on the aesthetic look you're going for. So the armor that I'm working on right now, it has, these are steel rivets. And this is over leather with steel underneath. Okay, so it's this is that oak, the oil tan leather that I was showing you, the kind of the garment grade, garment weight, with linen on the inside over the metal just to keep the rust off. And then I have these are mild steel rivets. So the important thing is after you get them all put in together, you want to put some sort of coating on top of these, otherwise they will rust.
Like
So-
like zinc or galvanized.
yeah, or you can, or it could be wax, or it could be grease or oil or something like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily another mineral. It could be just oil or something.
Okay.
Just you got to treat it, otherwise those points will rust. All right, so rivets again. You have a wide variety to choose from. It really depends on what you're going for. I like copper a lot. If I had my my choice of any, I would just choose copper because it's easier to work with, especially when you're getting started. Let's see. I want to get you a certain kind of copper one to use. So I'm going to set one and then show you how to do it, and then you're going to do one. Okay?
Hey, that's cool, man. Oh, I thought it was cool.
I need to come in here. I've been traveling a lot for doing sword fighting events, so a lot of my tools have been moved around. So,
Yeah.
sorry.
How did the U.S. team do at Battle Nations?
Well, we're the Battle Nations event hasn't happened yet. It happens in May. We had the national practice in Springfield, Illinois. We've had two. We had one in October, and then we had one in February. And they've selected the team, so it's doing really well. So this is the kind of copper rivets I like. Those are called copper saddle rivets.
Shadow Rivets.
Yeah, and then I have different sizes. So these are just longer. So if you're going through more layers of material that you're holding together, then you want to get something that's like this. These are not necessary unless you're doing large attachment points. We have like 4 or 5 layers of leather, and you want to probably try to avoid those attachment points if you can, because one rivet, you'll probably need to put 2 or 3 rivets in there to make it hold also, just because that becomes a big stress point. Okay.
And if there's excess, do you cut it off?
Yes, no, I'll show you that. You don't want extra material off the top at all, because it will just get in the way. It'll poke you or poke out from your material, and it'll look awkward. And if it's not tight, it will make it so that your material is loose and not binding like it should. Okay, so you have the copper rivet I was showing you. All right, so you will keep. Go ahead and give me the rest. And I'll give you the. Here's a couple burrs. So those are they're called washers or burrs. The burr is the proper term for rivet, and all it does is that holds the rivet in place.
Are they sold separately?
It depends how you. Like this is washers burrs and rivets.
Okay.
So if you look in the bottom, there's a couple burrs underneath,
Okay.
and that's from Tandy.
Okay.
But you can buy it separate also, like these boxes. Those are just burrs.
Okay.
And then I have boxes that are just rivets. So, right. I'll give you a second one. I'm going to do one, you're going to do one.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. So, for setting a rivet, you really need 2 things. You need a rivet set, which I have 2. This is one that I've used for like 20 years. Notice this big mushroom. This is a brand new one. So this is the difference, right? It shrinks over time, just like we do. So also, if you look, this is it's all beat up, and this is because this is used on a heavy hard anvil all the time, and this is what it looks like when it's brand new. So these are really important because this is what will help set the burr into the right length. The next thing you need is a hammer, which we talked about, and the final thing you need is some pliers to cut them. These are good. You can get them from Home Depot for under $10. These are end cutters or end snippers. They cut right through the copper and allow you to trim that up. So let me see this. Okay, so if this is our buckle, we want this flat side to be in towards the body, and we'll put the rivet part, the burr, towards the top. So we put it through. Okay. All right, we get a washer, set it on. So we're already halfway there. Okay. Now all we do is we're gonna set the rivet washer down. So we put the stem into the hole there, and then we're gonna lightly tap it. The trick is you want to make sure that you're on as flat of a surface as you can find, and that you're hitting it straight up and down, not at an angle at all. Okay. You can start slow and easy, and then when you go a little ways down, you can turn the bottom, because the part of the set that you're using will alternate as you turn it. So if you're holding it and you don't turn it, your washer or your burr will end up going down at an angle. Okay? So you tap it, kind of turn it a little bit. Okay? Now look, it's snug on there, and it actually will hold probably fairly well as it is. It's obviously not done yet because you have the stem sticking out. So the next trick is the snippers. You want to go down low, pretty low as you can go. All right.
Okay.
So that you have a little bit sticking out, just a little bit. That's all you need. So as little material as possible. And this is where you wouldn't want to use the rawhide hammer for this part. You want to use a peen hammer. So it's got a more of a tighter round dome. Because what you're going to do is try to get that to mushroom out.
And does Tandy sell it, or
Home Depot.
Home Depot? Okay.
Yeah, probably less than $10. Okay. This is actually probably heavier than you need. You could probably get one that's lighter. I'm trying to look and see if I have one. Here's one. This is probably a 6 ounce. This is about an 8 ounce, so go ahead and hold that. And that's probably good enough to start.
Okay.
And then over time, one of the things about being an armor smith is you collect hammers. So I got all kinds of hammers. So with this, you're going to just tap it. Make sure it's tucked down to the anvil as tight as possible. Sorry, it's bouncing a little bit. And then what I'm doing is I'm going around in a circle.
On the edges as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So you start in the middle until it starts to flare out, and then you kind of tap it down around in a circle. There you go.
Okay.
So you can see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Very nice.
Yep. So now you got a buckle, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now it's your turn. So what we're going to do is you're going to do your buckle off of this one.
Okay.
I'm going to trim this piece off so it's not in your way. And then there you go. So first thing you need to do is find the place where you want to put the hole for the rivet.
Okay.
I'll get you a buckle. There you go.
Okay. So here, top, over. Half and half.
Yep. And then the trick is, and you already got that, which is making sure that the sides on the top and the bottom are lined up as much as possible, which you got. And then you just find out where you want that hole. Try to make it as even into the center of the top as possible. And hold on before you, okay. I'm just making sure the bottom doesn't slide out. Line it up when you're ready, and then start to push, and give it a good squeeze. There you
Okay.
go. And then twist it. So yeah, just twist the leather. Yeah, just show you. Okay, there, we're good. And then so you got the cleared out on the top, and then the bottom, you have to pull that out a little bit. It's okay. And that happens. So a little bit more force, and that would have done that also.
Okay.
But that's out. Okay, I'll take that from you. You can go ahead and take that.
Alright. Now, where is...
First thing is, I would just say, yeah, go ahead and get your rivet
Okay.
set up. Put it through the bottom.
the
How you doing?
bottom?
Good.
Two.
If you have extra burrs, I'll take them for you. So you can, there you go.
A teaspoon chop.
Yeah, what do you need it for?
100%.
Okay, keep it that way. Okay,
Sorry for
bring it back.
That came.
The burr come off?
I was like, well, push it all the way.
Yep. So it will only go in a little ways at first, and
Okay.
then that's what the setter does, is to
Oh,
push it the
okay.
rest of the way. So go ahead and set it down flat on the anvil.
Okay.
We have a good spot here. Here's your. Make sure the hole is over the stem.
Yeah.
And your weapon of destruction. Once it's nice and tight, then you're good. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Good. And then we'll take that. There you go. Go as low as you can.
See what I mean?
Okay.
It's rusting.
Yeah, it's just on the fabric. We just need to put new tape on. Okay, so this is done. Now we need to switch hammers to that one. Yep. Make sure it's nice and flat. So the only problem with all the leather is it kind of bunches up sometimes, so you'll make sure that the copper is as flat as possible onto the anvil. There you go. Straight down as much as possible to start. And you'll know when it's ready to go around. Okay, let's look at that for a second. Okay, so it's good. So if you look at mine and yours, they're pretty similar, right? Yeah. One little difference is if put your thumb across that one or your finger. See how it's a little sharp right there? You can take the edge of the peen and just hit it right there a couple times, and you can get that to go away. So if you, yeah, there you go. Yeah, just like that. Okay, then let's check it. All right. Do a little hit here. Okay. And the point of that is, if you're, you're wearing your armor, the last thing you want is your armor to cut you, right? You want it to be protective, not destructive. So, and this could also cut into your gambeson or your army jacket or your friends or whatever by accident. So you try to get that as smooth as possible. If you needed to, you could always hit it with a file or something if you wanted to. But that's perfectly good, I think. And it's perfectly center lined. You got your buckle in. The tongue functions properly, and it can hold force. So you've created a buckle.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Now the next step.
Yeah, the next step. So the buckle is actually the key to a lot of it. The strap and the buckle. All right. So you've learned about cutting the leather. You've learned about patterning. You've learned about setting rivets. You've learned about putting in buckles. Right. What question would you have? What's the next step in your mind?
For segmentada, it's like for leather, the leather is it goes around like at an angle. Is it does for the leather? Do you have to can it bend by itself, or do you have to hammer it to bend?
So if you're forming the leather, so there's different ways to do it. There's actually a kind of leather, and you're probably familiar with the term corboilie, which is boiled leather. It's
Yes.
actually with beeswax and olive oil, and a different combination. I think it's 2 parts beeswax, 1 part olive oil, and you boil the leather, which is you have to use vegetable tan leather or tan leather, and you you can then boil it with this wax and oil mixture, and then you set it into the design, the shape that you want. And then as it hardens, it turns into hardened leather.
Okay.
So it becomes harder. That takes a little more work and also requires a little more in the way of materials. You'll need something to heat the oil and the wax in. You'll need a pot or something to put it in, and then you'll have to set it into the shape and the form you want. And you have about a minute or 2 to set it, and then it's set. And then you can always redo it by reboiling it, but after so many times, it doesn't boil so well. So that's something that you could do. I would probably start without that, and then with the leather that we have, that you saw that oak tan piece. Go ahead and pick that up, the leather. You can bend that your shape,
Okay.
in the shape that you want, right? And then you can layer it into different layers. Here's a piece. These were going to be pieces for leg armor. So for the thigh, for the upper thigh here. So these were going to have. Go ahead and hold that, and I'll show you the other pieces that were going to go with that. So these are splints, and these splints were going to go down the length of these, down here, like so, and then that was going to wrap around and have buckles to hold it in place.
For the Lorica, it's for eight sheets.
Mhm.
It's segmented like our pauldron.
Mhm.
It's segmented. How does that how would I do that? By rivets?
On the pauldron part.
It's as a pauldron, but
Okay,
it's on
over
the body.
shoulder. Oh, okay. So here's this is similar, which is, well, actually I have a piece. Hold on, let me check and see if it's right here. I think this is kind of similar. This is a different style. This is a 13th century European, and this is metal, but this is bands or strips of metal that are interleaved, right? And this is going to be on the inside versus on the outside. But I think this is kind of similar to what you're doing, right? Just with them being shaped around to go on the outside, right? So this would be on the outside of the armor, right? Right, and then it'd be of course curved to match the body, right? Is that accurate or is that close?
It's as the riveted here and like together, like not like outside but inside. So
Okay.
one on the other.
Okay, so they so you can see the rivets through the top, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's reasons why you would want to, why you wouldn't want to see the rivets. Rivets can actually be hit and smashed and destroyed, causing your armor to fail. These are kind of tucked underneath, so they actually can't be hit directly. The other good thing about it is this flexes and moves, right? This is designed to go on my back and to cover the lower back from my waist down. So this is designed to flex and move as I'm running or walking, and to take a good solid hit, right? So this is also the same thing. These are plates that are layered in on the leather. You could do something with the strips of leather, and then you can attach them with rivets to themselves, to each other, or you can attach them with rivets to straps.
Well, right now the type of armor is. Well, I'm not sure. It's like. I'm not sure if I should go with Roman or Greek, or what do you think is the best armor I should go? Like what century?
It really depends on what you're trying to do. I personally am a fan of 16th century stuff. I started doing this 14th century stuff for the Battle of Nations. I like it, fine, but it's not my my favorite. I like a little more later, like 1500s, so like 1520 to 1580 type armor, more the full tournament armor. That's just because it's super protective.
Why would a German? Like, can German go as weapon?
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on the time frame. It all just depends on the time frame. It depends on the money that you had too. As a soldier of the time frame, if you're just a common foot soldier, most of your equipment would be leather with a couple pieces of metal, and that's it. Very little metal. The more prestige or money that you had, the better your armor was. It took a village of resources to provide armor and a horse for a knight. So it was not a cheap endeavor. It was not, so it was very expensive, time consuming, and resource intensive.
But during those times, would people make leather armor as the style and form of the plate armor that the knights would?
They would at times. So this style, which we'll see with the front, which I showed you, this transitioned into a full steel similar style. It became the Globus breastplate, which is like a 1460s Italian style. They started doing one which it was a breastplate that was kind of bulged in the front and then stopped like high in the body, and then it had just little plates like that down below. That was kind of the first time where they transitioned from using leather and sheets of metal or pieces of metal into just a big piece of metal. So that started to happen around the 1380s into the 1420s. But They still, like the common foot soldier was mostly wearing leather anyway. Still, he would wear a big padded shirt, big padded pants, a couple pieces of good leather, maybe one little piece of metal around his neck or on his elbows, and
Or studded.
yeah, and that was it. Oh yeah, and so it could be like this is really kind of banded mail is really what it is. There's other names for it, but this is also a brigantine. It's a kind of brigantine. What's up,
He's shooting the ball at me.
Ben?
Oh, Lebanon.
It's really similar. It's just a different, slightly different terms of the same, construction. The brigantines, the pieces start to get smaller and smaller, and then they reverse, and there's smaller pieces with a couple large pieces, like these pieces in the middle, with small pieces as supplement, and then it gets into more of the full on tournament armor.
Well, since I'm gonna start with full leather, what century should I focus on? Because right now I'm only known for 12th century with chainmail.
Right. Well, I would go up a century, go with 1300s. Find something in 1300s that looks good that you like, and then just start with it on just look at the design, the style that you like, and just make it all out of leather.
Okay.
It can even be pieces that might be steel that you can just fashion and form into leather.
Okay.
I've seen people do these are greaves. We put leather over the top of them, but they're really just leather greaves, and then we just put some steel over the top of them to make them a little more protective. So that could be for the lower leg part there below the knee, and then you could do something with the upper leg. I'll show you one that I have.